Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
David Weiss.
What is going on, guys?
How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing?
Real good. We're stoked for this.
Are you?
Yeah, hell yeah.
What side of the fence are you guys on?
We're not married to the ball. I got
Okay.
1 foot over and the other one on a banana peel.
All right, you guys are all flat earthers.
So,
all right.
let me give you a little background before we get into
Sure.
it, and then maybe we can direct you where you want to go. But so I had a barber when I lived in Oklahoma City that was like full blown flat earth guy. And at the point in my life, I almost had to get a new barber because I got sick of hearing him talk about it so much. And then with everything that's been going on in the last year, I heard you on Tinfoil Hat, and I've taken a deep dive and listened to you on many, many shows. And the biggest thing that's got me hooked through 2020 and into 2021 is just the great lie and the deception of it all. And the thing I heard you talk about that really got me interested was all the stuff you talk about with Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. And the deception of that, and growing up in the 80s, being terrified of this guy. He's this great big ogre. And then I see your video, and he's literally driving down the streets, hanging out of the sunroof, like waving, and the people are going nuts.
Let's talk about this on the show. Let's talk about it on the show.
We're rolling, so we roll right into it. Yeah.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I grew up afraid of this guy, I remember, watching him on the news, and the whole family sitting around like, this guy is just horrible. And the news, I have the hiccups, I'm sorry. The news is saying just all these horrible things about him. And then later in life, when I found out who he really was, and when you would hear that people would have to kiss his hand and kiss his feet, or he'd cut their heads off. That's what I was told as a kid. Okay. And none of that is true. He was, I almost wore my Gaddafi shirt today. I have a Gaddafi shirt. I was like, oh, don't wear this one today. So yeah, he was. Did you see my Great Man-Made River one? That's the killer one. That's the one that it literally makes me tear up when I see it. It's so sad. He built the largest aquifer project in known history. Took him 40 years. And then Hillary Clinton and the United Nations blew it up
with unlimited uranium, right?
Yeah, with depleted uranium.
Depleted uranium. Sorry.
Yeah. And he discovered primary water, which is the real water from this earth. We're taught that evaporation, condensation, and precipitation is how the water cycle on this earth works. That is secondary water. Primary water is the waters below and the waters above, which are infinite and pristine. And he, when looking for oil, discovered an ocean of ancient water below the desert. And that's what he was, an endless supply, infinite. And that's what he was pumping all through Africa. He was going to feed all of Africa, and they couldn't have that. So, that really ties into the flat earth. I think he knew the earth was flat, and maybe that's another reason they took him out, because they can't. That's the biggest secret. The biggest secret in this world is what the world is or what it isn't. And, if that gets out, they lose total control. I just heard a story today. We just did a show. And one of the callers, an older gentleman who said he worked in Antarctica. He had a project down there, and he showed us pictures and everything, and very, very strange things, on getting there and being there. But one of the things he said is why they were there. I think they were firemen strangely died in a fire in a house. And there's like no reason they couldn't have gotten out of the house, but very strange circumstances that they died. And, the speculation that immediately goes to my head is they saw something that they weren't supposed to see, and they couldn't let them leave Antarctica alive. Speculation. I believe, honestly, if in Antarctica, when you're there, you're not allowed to venture off on your own at all. No dogs, no sled dogs are allowed down there, because a sled dog can take you far away really quick, And I think just maybe 10, 15 miles out of town, you'll start seeing the real world, and they don't want you to see that.
Is there anyone that we know of, David, that has seen that other side that's lived to tell about it that you know of?
Yeah, we had there's a few people that have worked in Antarctica. We interviewed a guy, I forget his name. He's he's in the flat earth circle, and he was down there for a year. He was a plumber in Antarctica. And basically, everything he wasn't a flat earther when he was there. Unlike this guy went as a flat earther, and he kept it quiet. Just jumping back to this guy, one of the things they told him when they were giving him orientation, they go, there's a lot of weird people here. He goes, some of them might start telling you stories, and they're flat earthers. He goes, don't believe anything they say. Why would they tell you that at orientation to Antarctica? Not to believe the stories that you may hear about flat Earth. Why would they even mention that?
Programming.
Yeah. Well, that way, if any crazy person, starts telling you, blah, 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 the ice wall, the dome, you'll be like, oh, yeah, they warned me about you. And that's it. It's like the comment section on my on videos. When the trolls get in there and just make stupid comments, it really does sway people away.
Yeah. Well, I think, for a lot of people, and I've heard you mention it and talk about it many times, you were one of those people where you had a conspiracy podcast, you dove into any and all topics, but whenever the topic of flat Earth came up, you blocked people. You didn't even want to deal with it. You just didn't even want it's crazy. It's crazy talk.
Right.
And then a close friend of yours, another conspiracy person, brought up the Great Deception to you, and you got into it because you wanted to disprove it. You wanted to debunk it.
That's how most of us got into it. We say, that's it. I'm just going to debunk this.
So where did you start with your debunking, and how far along into that, and what was the aha moment for you?
It was 2 weeks. It took 2 weeks. What is Sophia? It was Sophia Smallstorm. She sent me Mark Sargent's clues. Yeah. Are you familiar with those? So Mark Sargent, he was a conspiracy guy, and he, clicked on flat Earth, and he looked into it, and he's like, this is stupid. And then he goes, wait a minute. How does a vacuum work on Earth? How does a spacesuit work? He had all these questions. So he put out a series of clues, short videos asking questions like, this doesn't make sense if the Earth is a globe. And he expected some scientists, some PhDs to get back to him and go, look, dummy, this is how it works. And they never did. So I watched the clues and I looked for answers. And the farther I looked, the more the ball just crumbles away. But it was the videos of people zooming in on boats and things in the distance that should be behind a physical curve. So, I looked up, what's the official story on the curvature, and what's the curvature of a ball 24,901 miles around. And I even rounded down, giving the ball every credit. And so then I just said, wait a minute, I got to do this myself, because, you can't just believe things that you see on the internet, because there's a lot of crap. And so I bought a P900 camera. It cost me about $1,000 with the tripod, maybe a little more. And I went down to the beach, and I knew there was this buoy that was 11 miles away. And so I rounded down to 10. At 10 miles, when a foot off the water, it should be like 60 plus feet of curvature. And I could see the buoy, and I could see the water for dozens of miles beyond the buoy. I could see the surface of the water beyond the buoy. So I'm like, I can see too far, and that's not a friggin' mirage. I know what I'm seeing, right? I know the waters. I know everything. And so that was the first aha moment. And then, just when I started looking into all of the tests, the Sagnac experiment, Michels and Morley, and Airey's failure, all the tests for curvature and axial rotation, they all failed. And we never learned about them in school. And then when I learned Antarctica was the highest land on Earth, it all started to make sense. The highest land on Earth is the edge of our pond, and it holds the waters in, right? Because when you first hear about flat Earth, the image you get is the programmed image. They want you to believe that the Earth is a disc, a disc floating in a heliocentric world, and a heliocentric planet. We're the only flat world up there, or there's a whole bunch of flat worlds, or whatever. No one ever believes that. And then when you start to understand that we live on this plane, and the Earth is a pond, and the shoreline of the pond, it surrounds all of the water. The water surrounds the continents, but the land surrounds the water. So Antarctica, when I realized, wow, Antarctica isn't this little island at the bottom of a ball. Antarctica could be bigger than all of the oceans and all of the continents combined on a massive Earth plane that we can't even fathom. That's when it all just started to come together, and I'm like, what the heck? And for 6 years, I've been trying to prove the globe, and I can't do it.
So when it comes to flat Earth, David, what do you think is the best starting point to talk to someone about it? Because for the longest time, if I saw you on Eddie Bravo's podcast or on Sam's, I'd start listening and I'd have to turn it off because I would say to myself, this makes too much sense, and I'm going to become one of these people. So I can't listen to this anymore because my brother's going to freak out on me if I come home and start preaching flat Earth.
Isn't that funny? So you guys are familiar with Owen Benjamin?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I Owen Benjamin, when he, actually Mark Sargent turned me on. He goes, hey, check this guy. He's really slamming the moon landings. And so I got in the chat there, and everyone's like, hey, flat Earth, flat Earth, flat Earth. And he's like, oh, flat Earth, and I convinced him to have me on. And when I got on with him, we really, got into it. And we had a great conversation, but I took clips of him throughout the year as he realized we live on a ball. And there was one where he's sitting in front of his piano late night, and he's like, he's getting ready he was going to talk to Eric Dubay at the time. This is before he was going to talk to me. And he goes, can somebody give me a proof of the globe? And he's like, and don't say refraction, don't say that, because he was smart enough to realize the globe proofs that they're giving are just nonsense. And then he goes, I don't want to be a flat Earth person. I don't want to be a flat earther. And that was the greatest line ever. And so when someone says, where do you start? I love giving them, I did about a 10-minute video compilation of Owen from flat Earth is stupid to holy crap, there's no way it's not flat. And that compilation there, when people watch that, it literally takes them through a year of time. And I think it's a great place to start. That, along with the classic ODD's A Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth, 21 Questions. That's the key one. I also have a playlist on my app. You guys are familiar with my app, right?
Yes.
And it's called Flat Earth Documentaries, and basically it's a Flat Earth. I call it Flat Earth Crash Course. There's 7 videos, and there's nobody that can watch even 3 of those and not become a flat earther. So I just tell people, if you really want to learn, turn off the TV for a week, watch 1 video a night, digest, drink a lot of water, don't freak out, and then you too can lose the respect of your friends and family.
Well, I think at this point in 2021, we're either on one side of the fence or the other with everything that's going on. So you've probably lost friends and family
and
more than likely anyway.
And gain new ones. And here's the thing. I asked you guys at the beginning, I said, where are you? And you're like, we're unsure, 1 foot on one side, 1 foot on the other. The fact that you're questioning the globe, it's over. Once you lose your faith in the globe, there's no going back. There's no going back. Now, there are shills out there, paid government shills that all work together. And we proved it recently. We found, that they're all working with the same artists and script writers. The Byman Dan and Professor Dave and Vsauce and all and Red's Rhetoric. These guys are out there to capture weak minds. So somebody that's lazy, that's just like, oh, I don't want to be a flat earther, you can listen to them and go, oh, thank God I don't have to be a flat earther. They just, they just said refraction and gravity, and they said these words, and they threw out some math equations that make sense. And if that math equation makes sense, then it has to be true. But I can do a math equation for things that aren't real. You can make a math equation for anything. So we don't live on a math equation. We live on a flat, non-rotating plane, just like all the NASA and FAA documents say.
Right. And I think that's what I keep coming back to with everything is the deception.
Yeah.
And I believe it was you sent me into another rabbit hole. I believe on a podcast you mentioned John Levy.
Oh, John Levy. Have you watched every one of his videos yet?
My God.
So good.
I go at least 2 or 3 a night.
Yeah.
And we live here in Denver. And
Nice.
so now I walk around and I look at old buildings and I notice like half the window that is, looks like a crawl space type of window, but it looks exactly like the same window above it, a couple feet. And they talk about they had these restoration projects early on in these city developments, and the same here happened in Denver that has happened in Salt Lake and San Francisco, where we had these amazing like Roman Gothic type buildings that they tore down in the name of like restoration, and they just put up parking garages and stuff. So
right.
Yeah, I think we don't know our past, kind of like what Graham Hancock says. We don't know our past, and to hear or to know, as Sam says, the first conspiracy theory is Santa Claus. I've been lied to by so many different people about so many different things. I know that the government is lying to us. How do we know? Like, people are like, this is crazy. I know the world is round or whatever. I'm like, how do you really know? Other than, like you say, Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye tells you, how do you really know?
Right. You believe. Belief is the enemy of knowing, as Crow 777 Radio says. Another channel you might want to write down, and this one's going to blow your mind, is Hangman 1128, all one words. Hangman 1128. This guy goes around showing you these rock formations and how they're actually branches from trees. These massive rock formations are just literally the remains of ancient giant cedars. When I say giant cedars, I'm talking cedars that are as big as cities. Okay. And there's no denying it. I mean, you can try to deny it, but this world is not what we think it was, thought it was, or have any idea what it was.
So tell us about your app a little bit. I know you've heard you talk about it many times. You've checked it out a little bit. I think that's a great place for people to dip their toes in the water and at least ease into, not thinking they're crazy.
So the reason I made the app is YouTube is purposely hiding flat Earth. I mean, they even talked about it in a congressional hearing, how, they're not going to recommend it and they're going to shadow ban it. And so if you try to research flat Earth, you're going to spend 500 hours and get 5 hours worth of content if you're lucky, if you have the wherewithal to plow through the garbage, plow through the crap that they put out there. So here's my app real quick. I'll show you. The sky is a perfect clock. The sun is the hour hand, but it's not on the hour hand. As you can see, it's an hour behind it because we're in fake daylight savings time here in the United States. And that's literally to throw our body clocks off. We can talk about that in a minute if you want. But the sun goes around once every 24 hours. I'll speed it up. And you'll see that it starts catching up to the moon because it laps the moon once every 28 days. So the position of the moon and the phases keep track of the weeks. And it used to be called moons. There was 13 moons, but they changed it, screwed up all the numbers and gave us 12 months. And the sun keeps track of the hours and the days. Slow it down, turn on the stars. The stars keep track of the seasons and the years. The stars are going slightly faster than the sun. So right now the sun is in, I think this is Taurus or whatever. The Taurus is the bull. I forget the names. I always say this. I should try to memorize them. But next month, this one will catch up to the sun and it'll be in I think that's Taurus. It'll be in that constellation for a month. And then the next one and the next one. And that's why it's that's when they say the sun is in that constellation, because it is. It's spinning with that constellation, and it stays in each one for about a month. So that would be impossible in a heliocentric beehive universe. The time zones just show you wherever the sun is. It's noon. It's 9 a.m. in Eastern Australia. It's 1 o'clock in the morning in Central Africa. And that's how the time zones work. And then here's how the seasons work. So right now the sun is over the equator, which is that middle red line. It's actually on the inside a little bit, and it's moving inward. If I jump forward a couple months, it goes to the Tropic of Cancer, which is our inner northern summer. The sun is closer to us, so it's higher in the sky. And then 6 months later, it jumps out to the Tropic of Capricorn, and the outer southern lands have their summer, right? So it's farther away from us, so it's lower in the sky, and we have our summer. It's that simple, right? If you had an airplane flying directly over your head at 10,000 feet, and another one was paralleling it at 10,000 feet, but it was 50 miles to the south, the one over your head is your summer sun, and the one out south, farther away, lower in the sky due to perspective, is your winter sun. It would be in the sky, shorter days, colder because it's farther away. Right now on this, Australia is having their summer because the sun is dead over their head, high in the sky. But us in the United States, the sun is far away. It's low in the sky. That's in December. We barely have any heat in December here in the Northeast, at least. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that? Suez Canal proves flat Earth. Is that related to what we're dealing with now with the?
Yeah. So was it the Suez Canal or was it the Panama Canal that got jammed up?
Suez.
The Suez. So that's just a coincidence. Every day I put a new featured video here. So if I click that, if I actually just tap that icon, up comes the featured video of the day, which is this Suez Canal video. Basically, they built the canal 120 miles long, and they never calculated for any curvature. It's set with a datum line of, I think, like 16 feet below sea level or something. It goes through 2 lakes. There's no locks. There's nothing. There's no curvature whatsoever. So here's the challenge I give people. I say, watch the featured video every day for 2 weeks. And at the end of that 2 weeks, if you still think the Earth is a globe, you weren't watching, but you can send me that proof, and I'll give you a Bitcoin. But before you do, you have to hit this button right here, this question mark, and up comes a playlist of the top 21 questions. Like, hey, what about eclipses? What about gravity? What about ships over the horizon? Like I was telling you, if I click that one, up comes a playlist of videos that YouTube, Google will not serve you, that will show you how to prove this for yourself. We did all the work for everybody, but again, you can take these videos and go prove it yourself. This is stuff that you won't find on YouTube. If you say, what about all the space agencies? Are they all in on it? Click that. Up come videos that you will not find easily on YouTube that show you all about how space is fake. The ISS is fake. They're faking everything. And it's all to control your mind. And there's tons and tons and tons of videos in there. If you hit the web button, the spider web, up comes this page, bottom right corner, mud floods. Lots of great videos in there. Okay. Next to that, biblical flat Earth. For those people that are Christians, Bible literates, whatever, there's tons of biblical stuff in there. I never lead with the biblical stuff, but it sure supports all the science behind it. Again, next to that, debunking the debunkers. Those are like you search top 10 reasons the Earth is flat. You're going to get top 10 reasons the Earth is a globe by these jokers here. These are the 3-head shills out there that are out there controlling weak minds. And what we do is we take those videos and we really take them apart. So that'll just help you see the deception. Top on the top, we have on the second from the left interviews. So this interview will get added to that playlist. So people that like my interviews, you just go in there and there's an endless list of interviews that I've done recently. It just goes on and on and on.
Speaking of recent interviews,
Yeah.
I saw you do. It was a redheaded hillbilly looking gentleman that had a weird goatee,
Yeah.
and he was. I didn't really like the way his tone or his kind of approach to what he was trying to do. He was giving you the business about having an app and making money off of it. And I stopped watching it because he was irritating me. But was he trying to debunk you? Is that what the premise of that
Yeah,
interview was?
there's a group of a couple, really butthurt Globe guys, and he was trying to take me apart, and so his only argument was that I'm charging for an app. Like what he goes, I'm trying to go over stuff with him, and I show him a short clip, like we'd be talking about boats over the horizon or something. And I would show him, this clip here. And then he's like, well, what else you got? I go, well, there's a ton in the app. And he goes, oh, why don't you just show me? I'm like, are we doing a 50-hour podcast or are we doing an hour podcast? And he goes, well, why are you making people buy the app? And he starts going, meanwhile, he's drinking a $4 can of poison, Monster energy drink that he's going to piss out in the next 20 minutes, except for the toxic chemicals that'll probably give him cancer. Meanwhile, the app for $3, you'll have it for the rest of your friggin' life. And I keep adding more and more and more things to it every day. So again, his argument was, that I'm all about making money and everything. So I took the clip of that and I literally set it to the song Money by Pink Floyd. And I wrote in the chat, I wrote in the description, give me all your money, sign up for my Patreon, donate money by PayPal. If you can't afford it, skip a meal and give me that money. I just wrote all of this crap stuff in there. I sold more apps from that video than any other thing I've done. And it's because people love it. Here's the thing. The app's $3. It's literally, read the reviews. It's the highest rate, one of the highest rated apps in the App Store. And the reviews, people are like, I wish I would have paid $30 for this app. So I'm blessed to be selling an app that I really, really love. One other thing, I wanted to show you one other thing in the app while we're here. So next to where it says Suez Canal, there's a little play button that brings you to the archive. So for anybody that, you're like, hey, I don't want to wait every day for the videos. Here are all the videos from this past month. And at the top, you hit the little hamburger. There are all of the other months. There are all of the other featured videos, a ton of stuff. And, you don't have to go through even a month, just a couple videos, and then you'll start to see the picture. So I left my own business where I was making a lot of money to do this, to spread this message, because this message is super important. One other thing on the app, there's the color wheel that brings you to all of these photos. So like if you're talking to somebody and you're trying to describe, like how can Polaris stay, inside the center of the Georgia Guidestones if we're twirling, whirling, and spinning, or if someone believes in the moon landing, you could say, you really believe that we went to the moon in this paper mache, tinfoil. Look at this thing.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to get into David, because I've heard you talk about the moon and the stars on other podcasts, and I kind of want to get into that on the flat Earth take on the moon, space, the fake moon land, and all that.
Okay, where do you want to go?
Well, what do you think the moon is? Obviously, I think everyone on this call doesn't believe that we went to the moon. And what is the flat Earth answer to other planets? Are those even out there? Or is that just something that's been told to us?
So here's Jupiter, which this is a time lapse from NASA, and Jupiter is a gaseous planet. We're told it's gigantic, next to the Earth, and that this storm right here is like bigger than the Earth. Remember, this is what we were taught in school. Remember?
Yep.
And look at this. So you got clouds going this way. You got a band going this way. These are all clouds. Okay. This is from NASA, right? These, this is insanity. So the most famous picture of Jupiter is from NASA, which everyone remembers. It's in their textbooks. Everyone is this picture right here. It was taken in 2014, but in 2016, NASA reported, we got a picture of the northern lights on Jupiter, which proves it has a magnetic core. This is what they showed us. Every single cloud is exactly the same. It's just, well, this one's a little lighter. See this little cloud right here? It's right there. Every single speck. They used the same picture. They put this on it and said, that's the Northern Lights. Okay. So the red bearded hillbilly guy, no offense to hillbillies, he said, well, they just got a picture of the Northern Lights and superimposed it on the old picture so it's easy to see. That's how desperate they are. Right? So this right here shows you NASA's not showing us real pictures. This is a picture of Pluto, right? There's a desert shaped like the dog Pluto. Maybe that's my imagination, okay? Right? Here's two shots of, this is the blue marble, which they admit they made in Photoshop, and it wasn't from any photographs. It was literally made in Photoshop from strips of data, and they visualized it the way they thought people would want to see it. And then a few years later, a bunch of years later, this is the next shot. Look at the size of the United States, right? Now, a lot of people say, well, this one was closer and you're not really seeing the edges, and you know, you can kind of replicate this. I'll give them that. But if we take this and we compare it to something we can verify, like we can drive across here and go across the boat, and we can measure this, and it's 934 miles. The diameter of the Earth is 7,917, according to NASA. I should be able to fit 8.5 of these in between these two red lines. 8.5 of those does not fit on there. So you have to believe that the Earth is tiny and half the continents don't exist, or this is a painting and NASA's lying. Or you have to believe that all of the rest of these land masses are on the other side of this ball. Okay? These are paintings. There is no space. There are no planets. Here is a shot of Mars, if I can find it. This is Mars through a super zoom camera. This is Mars. Not what NASA shows us. Mars is an energetic pulsing orb of energy. Okay. It's here within the Earth system. It's small, it's close, and it's bright, and it emits its own light. You know, you look at Mars in the sky, it's brighter than any star. How is a dusty, dirty ball that's far away from the sun, where the sun would be tiny compared to how big we see the sun, that sun is bouncing off of that dusty, dirty ball and coming back to Earth brighter than any star? I don't think so. If you know anything about how light works, how light gets dimmer over time, or the reflectivity of a dusty, dirty ball, there's no way it would be bright. You wouldn't even be able to see it. It's nonsense. And then if you start looking at stars, here is the star Capella. This is Capella. That doesn't look like a burning ball of hydrogen, right? This is the star Sirius, right? This is my favorite one, Arcturus. Anybody can get it. You can take a super zoom camera, a small telescope, zoom in on this puppy. This is what you're seeing. Not what NASA does. Yes, I took this one. Yeah. And it's when you see this for yourself, you're like, wow, here's a whole combination. Now, some of the people like, some of these, well, these are out of focus. Yes, some of them are out of focus because it's hard to focus on something that's energetic, that doesn't have any, I don't believe they have any mass. They're all named after, all the planets are named after demigods. What's up with that? You know, I think the heavens above, where we're seeing all of these luminaries, are beyond what people are really can imagine. I think that they're, you know, that maybe our souls are up there. They're sentient in some way. They're godlike, for lack of a better word. And that's where the energies of this Earth, you know, astrology, I'm like, wait a minute, Mars in retrograde. How does a rock 25 million miles away that can't even affect the tides affect my daily life, right? That makes no sense. But what if it was an energetic electrical source right here close, and it was connected to us? There was connections, right? Astrology is the real science. Astronomy is pseudoscience.
Have you ever done psychedelics?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I've done ayahuasca 4 times with a shaman.
Okay.
And you know, I've had my fair dose of mushrooms.
That's where I was going with this. I've done ayahuasca probably about a dozen times, and my first 7 were in Peru in the jungle.
Nice.
And I had a very, very, very intense second ayahuasca ceremony, to the point where I didn't know what I was, where I was, if I was ever coming back to what I thought reality was.
Right.
And in that moment where I was just, there was no body, it was just consciousness or mind. Um, I had this thought that, okay, this is what it is. This is what it is when you die. You're out into the, blasted out into the ether, and you're out with the stars and all of that stuff. That was
Sure.
kind of my takeaway. So
Yeah, there's a lot a lot going on. I haven't done ayahuasca since I realized the earth was flat, and I'm waiting for it to come find me again. So when that opportunity strikes, I think it'll be very, very interesting. But we see the world the way it's presented to us, and we've been presented with the Helios nonsensical soul lure system, I call it. Right? It's absolute insanity what people believe. Like, if we can, I don't believe that anybody can get over 150,000 feet, to be honest. Somewhere around there. They've claimed to get some planes up to like 300,000 feet. I don't believe it. I don't believe that a human can survive that far away from the earth. I think that we're electrically connected to this earth, and that we can't survive without the earth intact. The earth is part of us, so we're all part of this whole system. So where are they going with that? What were you saying? Sorry.
well, I was just relaying that what you had mentioned when you were going over the stars, that it's just like kind of energy and beings and souls. And
Yeah,
when I did that
my
ayahuasca
opinion.
ceremony, that's
Yeah.
what I thought was, where your soul goes, you go into the vastness, into the
Right.
ether.
So here's my this is me. Now again, this is all, there's plenty that we can prove here scientifically, measurably, testably, that the earth is flat, non-rotating. That's it. But this is getting, this is a lot of opinions and stuff. My belief is that we have a soul, which is the spark of our life. The soul is a piece of God. It is the spirit inside of us, and souls are the currency of the system, the realm that we live in, and everybody wants them. Evil wants to steal your soul. If they can get you to sell it, they will. They'll take over your soul if you lose control of it. We're here experiencing the world with amnesia, trying to connect with our soul and to expand the mind of the creator. And that our sole job here is not to break anyone else's free will and not to lose control of our soul. If you lose control of your soul, then you failed. And then you can go out and come back in again. I don't know, what happens, how many times you can come in and out, or if you even can. That's a whole nother thing. But we're here having this experience, and they want us to believe that we're lost, spinning out of control, flying through an infinite, godless, or at best distant God universe, where we have no control over our lives. Where we give away our free will to the government, because we're afraid that an asteroid is going to take us out, a nuclear bomb is going to take us out, evil dictator is going to take us out. All of that is nonsense. Global warming, nonsense. Running out of fuel, nonsense. Food shortage, complete and total nonsense. Water shortage, the biggest lie on earth. Okay, none of that is real. Overpopulation, don't believe it. I don't believe the numbers that they give us, and even if they were, you can fit everyone in the state of Texas at the current numbers they give us. Every family could have a quarter acre in Texas.
Yeah, drive through Utah, going to California, and tell me about overpopulation.
There's nothing. I think that the population of the earth is less than half of what they're telling us.
David,
Go ahead, Jim.
Couple of things I wanted to touch on for the audio listeners that didn't see your NASA insignia. What does NASA stand for, in your opinion, and why did it have the Mickey Mouse ears on it?
Oh, because NASA is not a space agency. That's what I like to say it is. They are just. I became a flat earther before I ever looked into NASA. I was like, wait a minute, we didn't go to the moon, and then I was like, whoa. 2 minutes later, once you look, we're all programmed. It's part of our lives, especially people my age. I grew up with the moon landings. Happened when I was a kid. It was the greatest thing ever. It's the biggest joke. It's the biggest lie. And all of the countries in the world, they're all in on it together. This whole division of countries is all just to divide us and to make us, to separate us, divide us. Together, we're powerful. Divided, we're less powerful, right? So they divide us by countries, they divide us by race, they divide us by religion and political parties and sports teams and genders, and they're dividing the genders, and now they're separating us and not letting us read each other's faces or lowering our oxygen. It's insanity what they're doing right now, and then people are just buying it and just giving in, and we are losing. We can very much go into a very dark age right now. That's why I quit everything to send this message out, because if somehow we get our freedom back, if somehow we say no, we get enough people to wake up and say no to the bullshit that's going on in this world, and we get our power back, the question is, how long can we keep it when there will be people here that know what this place is? If we're lost in space, spinning out of control, and have no idea where we are, we won't keep it for long. Somebody will take over, something, some entity, will take over again, just like they did, 100 years ago.
And another thing I wanted to ask you, and I've never seen it, but our buddy suggested it, who's a Glober. What is your thoughts on the Netflix documentary? I believe it's called Behind the Curve.
Yeah, the Netflix, so Netflix is one of the biggest mind control things going on, that they have, that's out there. I'm just trying to find my graphic, which I usually pull up very swiftly, but they move on me. So that video, that movie is a movie. Okay, it's like Jurassic Park. It's a story, and it's not anything to to believe this, that Netflix. So the Globers are so desperate that they need flat earthers to prove axial rotation and to prove curvature. And that's what the movie portrayed. But at the end of the movie, the Jaron Campanella and crew were doing here it is. They were doing a laser experiment where we had a canal where we had a level, we could use the level of the canal, and we had 3 pieces of plywood a mile apart with a hole drilled at the same level. And we said, if we could shine a laser beam through all 3 holes, that would prove the earth is flat. And if the one in the middle was higher, then that would prove the earth is curved. Makes sense, right? Because you got the curve, right? So first thing that happened is the laser. Oh, and doing these things out on the road, you need batteries, and you need phones, and you need people, and you got to move things, and camera equipment. And these documentary people, they said, hey, we want to film it for you. And we said, okay, you'll film it. And they said, we'll film it and we'll give you all the footage. So we're like, great, this is fantastic. So it's being professionally filmed. So the first thing that happened is the laser melted. The condenser laser is spread out. The first time we tested it, it was like a 10-foot circle, 2 miles away. So it melted the condenser. So the laser broke. We couldn't even use the laser. So we said, here, hold the light. And we held the light through the hole, and he said, can't see it. Right. And then we said, lift it up. And he lifted it up and he could see it. And Jaron goes, interesting. Okay. Cut. That's where they cut the movie. Okay. Then 2 seconds later, they bring the thing down again, and we can see it. We can see it the second time. The thing what happened was there was some branches in between. There was all sorts of stuff. It was, it was at night, but we could see it. But even though that suggests that the earth is flat, everybody walked away, Globers and flat earthers, saying nothing was proven. There was too many variables, and we all walked away. But the movie was edited to make it look like we just proved curvature and denied it. And then the other thing is the ring laser gyro. The ring laser gyro, a gyro holds rigidity in space. And if the earth is curving, if the earth is spinning, that gyro should precess at 15 degrees per hour. That's one of the reasons why it would progress. So they did this ring laser gyro experiment, and it progressed around 15 degrees per hour. And Bob made a comment. He said something like, we better not let the Globers get this information, because they're going to take it and twist it out of context, and then they literally edited that and made it look like, don't let them know, because we just proved it and we don't want them to know. So we did an experiment following that, where we took the ring laser gyro and did it at 2 different altitudes in Denver. We brought it up, to the top of a mountain, And then we did it down in the valley, and at the top of the mountain, it precessed at a different rate, not 15 degrees per hour. If it was the earth spinning, doesn't matter what altitude you have it at, it would precess at the same rate. If it's the ether that was moving, then that only makes sense in what we did. So the experiment proved it was the ether, but they left that out of the movie. We're in a battle with them trying to get that footage, but they said they promised us the footage, but they signed a deal with Netflix, and the Netflix in their contract said you can't share that footage with anybody ever. So our lawyer is talking to their lawyer. They won't even talk to us anymore. But it's because if they release that footage, it'll show that they're complete and total frauds. So sorry for the long explanation, but you asked.
We love it. We love it. And I think we need those long explanations because we've had a couple academics on and stuff. And, the last guy we had on, he says it's all fun and games until the historian shows up or, if you don't have a couple extra letters at the end of your last name, any of your research isn't valid. Yeah. And I just think that it's weird that people just poo-poo things and don't they have such attachment to what you said before about the belief. Yep. If we could, I want to go back to Antarctica real quick, because long before I ever started even entertaining the thought of flat Earth, I was very much so into and liked looking into Operation High Jump. And then most recently, what I had discovered was that Admiral Byrd was a Freemason. Yeah. So do you get into the Operation High Jump stuff at all? Is there any validity to any of that stuff?
Which part? Admiral Byrd flew out over Antarctica in the 50s and said, past the poles, there was land bigger than the United States, filled with resources that no human has ever seen. Okay, so how could that be possible on a ball? I think that's at the point where they came up with the hollow Earth theory. Like he flew into the hollow Earth. I used to think that was the coolest thing, but he just went beyond the shoreline of our world, which is off limits. In 1959, they came up with the Antarctic Treaty. It's in place until the year 2041. It's the only treaty in history that's never been broken. Okay, in our war for resources, Antarctica is this massive place, and no one's breaking the treaty. You can't even question it until the year 2041. They can't fly a plane over Antarctica because they don't want to disturb the penguins, but you can deforest the Amazon and kill elephants and rhinos and monkeys. And, are you kidding me? It's the biggest joke ever, Antarctica.
And how you said Antarctica is the highest point on Earth. Like, how high is the wall?
So it's not a wall, it's the shoreline of Antarctica.
Okay.
So the sun oscillates, as I showed you on the app, in and out. It never gets close enough to Antarctica to melt it. So it's just permanently frozen there. So it's like 200 feet high in most areas when you get there. And then it just goes on and on and on. We don't know how far it goes. Maybe it only goes 1,000 miles. And then there's the dome. Maybe it goes on infinitely. Maybe there's other puddles out there. Maybe so when they say the ice wall, that's Game of Thrones stuff. It's not the ice wall.
Okay.
It's the shoreline, period. It's just the shoreline of Antarctica. And if there's 200 feet of ice in there and Antarctica is big as I think it is, I think Antarctica is bigger than all of the oceans and all of the continents combined. If Antarctica did melt, the sea level would rise 200 feet. Okay. I don't believe any of that. I don't believe that Antarctica is melting. The only time Antarctica is going to melt if there's a catastrophic shift, not a catastrophic shift, maybe a cyclic shift where our sun moves outwards. Now, again, this is my speculation. And I did a talk with Sophia Smallstorm about, it's called the outward flow of civilization. So our sun is in here, right? What if our sun, instead of oscillating in and out here, all of a sudden it moved out here, right? What that would do if this was all frozen, so if this is Antarctica and this is the early world and this is just our puddle and the sun is oscillating, out to Capricorn into Cancer. And then one day it goes, I'm going to go out here and I'm going to oscillate out here as I circle around a bigger circle, right? And it's oscillating out here. All of this ice is going to melt. There's going to be a massive mud flood in here. all of the people in here are going to migrate outwards to these outer lands, these extraterra. And then this would freeze over unless another sun was born in the middle. And so now you have a new population of people living in here. They have no idea about the extraterrestrials that live out here in the outer space. And it could have happened one time further, right? These are all possibilities that make 1,000% more sense than outer space with distant, ridiculous stars floating, you know, in ridiculous distances. The closest star to us is 80, 160, 200,000. No, I can't even explain the distance, right? Our sun is gigantic. If it was right next to the Earth, it would fill the entire sky, right? It would fill the entire sky like this. If it was a mile over your head, it would fill the entire sky. You move it 93 million miles away, it's now the size of a coin held at arm's length. So it reduced from, you know, filling the entire sky to a little dot in the sky due to perspective, right? If I doubled the distance, you wouldn't be able to see it anymore. If I 8 times the distance, we can all agree that you wouldn't be able to see it. It's too small. Its angular size is too small for your eye to resolve. So 8 times the distance. We'll call that the sun's too far to see distance. You with me? The closest star is 40,000 times farther than the I can't see the sun anymore because it's too far distance. 40,000 times farther. You could not see that. And that's the closest star. The rest are magnitudes farther than that. When in reality, all of the stars that we see are right here within the Earth system. When we send a balloon up with high definition cameras looking up, we can see the stars from the ground. And as it gets up 5,000-10,000 feet above the cloud, you know, above any moisture, the cloud should get, the stars should get brighter and brighter. You should see more and more of them, you would think. The problem is when you get up to 40, 50, 60,000 feet, all the stars are gone. They're all gone.
Same on the moon.
What about the moon?
You couldn't see any stars, right?
Yeah, but you can see the moon and it's tiny. When you're up there, the moon is a speck, right? You guys, you know about the Go Fast rocket? This is a rocket that some amateurs set up in Arizona, and it went straight up 73 miles. And all of a sudden, unlike NASA, which curves out and goes over the ocean and, you know, crashes into the Bermuda Triangle, this thing went up and all of a sudden it went kerplunk, and you heard this kerplunk noise. It went into water or plasma. There was something more viscous. And so this is 73 miles up. And it started floating really weird in silence for a little while. And when it turned on its side, all of a sudden you can see the moon, which is a tiny little dot. Here it comes right there. Okay. Well, the moon was over New Zealand at that time. So if the Earth is a basketball, and that rocket was over Arizona, which is on top of that basketball, it would be a fraction of a millimeter over that basketball. And the moon was down below the ball over New Zealand on the other side of the ball. Impossible to see. Impossible to see on a globe.
So that map that you showed us before had other land masses outside of Antarctica and outside of the world as we know it. Yeah. Is that old world stuff that they had, or is that just what people are thinking is outside?
This is speculation. This, however, is an old Japanese map that was found. It was in, I forget what newspaper it was in. I think this is in the New York Journal before the New York Times. And about, you know, it shows like 50 other continents outside of Antarctica. What's that about? Extraterrestrials make a lot more sense from the outer space. Why are the largest telescopes in the world, which are owned by the Vatican, all in the outer southern lands, you know, in Santiago and in Johannesburg? Why are they all looking out south in all directions? They're not looking up. They're looking out south. What the heck are they looking for? Right?
You just blew my mind calling the outer regions of Antarctica the outer space, like the
outer space. And what's in the outer space? What if this is extra land? What's another word for land? Territory. Terra. Extra terra. Extraterrestrials.
And so when we're talking about extraterrestrials, if the Earth is flat, if outer space isn't what we think it is,
Yeah.
that all of these, sightings or abductions could potentially be coming from people that are coming from those lands.
So if you think about it, we were just talking about those distances to the stars. The closest star, 25 trillion miles away. You can't even fathom what that number is. 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years. 25 trillion miles. And they're coming here and crashing in Roswell? Or are they literally just coming from a couple thousand miles away in Antarctica, right? If you're an alien and you're like, hey, you say to your wife, honey, I got to go in and anally probe somebody, and they leave after breakfast, you can make it home for dinner, okay? You can make it back to dinner for dinner. You just get in your anti-gravitic, electric propulsion craft, you fly over, you anally probe somebody, and then you leave. Okay, you're not traveling through intergalactic space.
Last question.
Yes.
Unlimited budget.
Yeah.
Unlimited resources. You handpick your crew. How do you officially go about disproving this? Are we going straight to Antarctica?
Antarctica would be one place we want to go. We're working with a television show that they're waiting to get green light, but this COVID thing has slowed us down, and we're going to have a big budget. So one of the things I want to do is go to Antarctica in, which I don't think they'll allow us, but we're going to try. Go to Antarctica in December and try to film the 24-hour sun, which I don't think it can't be done as we know it. So the other thing, another one is I have an experiment, which I know I'm 99.9% sure that it'll work. It'll, we can, for, $50,000 to $100,000, we can do it. It's running a fluorescent line. I'm a kite surfer, and the lines are like 3,000 pound test. And if you lay them in the water, they're neutrally buoyant, but they actually sink. So that's good, because sinking is in benefit to the globe. And the idea is to get like a 3 to 5 mile stretch of water and torque it just a millimeter under the surface of a calm lake. All right, because if you had any line would sag in the air, it doesn't matter what it's made out of. But if it's neutrally buoyant, and that way the center of the line should be, a couple feet under the water, and if it's not, that proves that the Earth is flat.
Quick question, David. Dinosaurs,
Yep.
real or fake?
Dinosaurs are real fake. No, but wait a minute. I have a picture of a dinosaur. This has to be real. All the bones are fake. The guy so I believe there were giant lizards, and not that long ago, the guy that came up with the idea of dinosaurs in the 1800s, some royal guy, he wrote a paper on it, and then no one had ever in all of history before him and all the pyramid building, no one ever mentioned finding a dinosaur. This guy writes a paper on it. A year later to the day, he discovers the first dinosaur. Dinosaurs are just to instill fear into children, to make you believe in heliocentrism, make you believe in evolution, and make you believe that you can be taken out by an asteroid at any moment, and to keep you living in fear. Guys, my app is available on Apple and Android. It's $2.99. You have to have an Android 8.0 operating system or higher, and iPhone 6 or better. In the app, it's going to ask you if you would like to subscribe. The little pop-up, you can say no, and you don't have to wait. It goes away. You still get everything. Okay?
Cool.
So it's the best app in the App Store. If you want to learn about flat Earth, and if you want to win a Bitcoin, take the app challenge, watch the video every day for 2 weeks, go into the archive, and then hit me up with your best globe proof, and you win a Bitcoin.
Awesome.
How many attempts have you gotten?
0.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time and the work you do.
This was an honor and a
Appreciate it so
pleasure.
much. This was awesome.
Yeah, you guys are great. Thanks so much. And send me a link when this is up. I'll share it on the app. It'll be when it's up on YouTube. All right.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
David. Have a great night.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Outer space, bro. My mind is gone.
No, I am not a flat earther, so we got to make sure we make that clear in the intro.